Hello lovely people, thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial on how to paint Vincent van Gogh's Starry Nights using watercolors, specifically the limited edition Starry Nights color sheets by Viviva. I start by examining the original painting, and maybe examining is probably not the right word. I am just admiring the original painting, looking at the composition, looking at the colors that have been used, and almost studying the original. Then I flip through the color sheets and pick out the colors that I want to use, at least for this preliminary sketch. Then I begin by mapping out where the stars are going to be. I'm using the palest yellow, very diluted happy yellow for this, and just creating circles on the page where the stars need to go. The right side top corner has a larger circle of yellow because this is where we are going to also draw the moon at a later point. Right now, just focus on creating happy little circles. Then you can also sketch in the signature swirling patterns of the sky. If you look at the original, then you can see that the lightest shade is a very pale pastel, almost pastel blue. So I'm going with the ocean blue, and I'm diluting this on my ceramic plate here because these paints, these color sheets are highly pigmented. A little goes a very long way. So adding a ton of water to dilute the color before marking out the swirls. The thing with watercolors is that we need to work from light to dark. So going with the lightest shades and colors are going to help you preserve that whiteness of the page for much longer. Remember that these strokes don't have to be perfect. You just sort of eyeball the size and shape. Just maybe keep the original painting open on one of your screens on a phone or your laptop and try to replicate it as much as you can. Once you're done with the swirls, you have to go back to the stars, use the same pale blue that you used for the swirls, and outline the circle of stars. Use broken strokes. Do not draw a ring or a solid line. These are meant to look like radiating energies, uh, not like a halo around the star. Vary the pressure and water content. The lighter you want the paint to be, the more water you need to add. The more vibrant and colorful you want the paint to be, the more the pigments that you need to add. This variation will help you add texture and depth to the sky. Next, I'm going back to the swirls, this time with a slightly more pigmented. I'm still using a very soft blue, but it just has a touch more of ocean blue pigment in it than water. And I'm adding small curved dashes in directional strokes, following the curve of the original, following the curve of the initial swirl that I had painted before. It is darkest at the points where the swirl of where the first swirl and the second one connects. Doing this is when I feel like the painting starts to resemble the original masterpiece. You sort of see the vision coming to life. Now, for the rest of the sky, the rest of the sky that's surrounding these swirls, I'm going in with a very diluted indigo blue and using a similar sort of directional curved stroke, enhancing the areas around the star with this particular stroke. The indigo in this palette has a muted, almost violet tone when watered down, creating a very soft transition between the swirl, the light blue swirl, and the rest of the night sky. It also contrasts really well with the yellow of the stars. Make sure that when you are painting the rest of the night sky, some of the strokes also overlap with the circles for the stars that you had put down. Uh, the original painting has a little hint of almost green in the sky, where the yellows and the blues merge together. So you can sort of replicate that in watercolors by layering this light pale blue on top of the yellow circle. With this first layer done, it's time to start adding the deeper blues. And I mix the midnight blue with the ocean blue to add a bit more depth to the night sky. Actually, I before doing that, I wanted to just add pure ocean blue with very little water to the edge of the swirl. This gives the swirl a glowing effect that is very similar to what we can see in the original painting. Make sure that you keep the center of the swirl as light as possible and only add darker colors to the edges. One or two strokes here and there in the center, the middle is not a problem. Just make sure that you don't overdo it. Next, I'm going in with midnight blue, pure midnight blue, again at the edge of the swirl. I began to mix indigo with Prussian blue for painting the rest of the night sky to darken up the sky. In Prussian blue is a very deep, almost navy blue. In this part, you can see me using a little bit of paint that had slipped and fell on the tracing paper that's in between the pages of the color sheet. If this happens to you, you can always pick it up like I just did and reuse the paint. Make sure that you follow the directional strokes that you had initially laid down in the first layer. And try not to overlap the darker colors on the lighter stroke underneath. Make sure that some of the lighter strokes still show through. You don't have to paint over the original light strokes that you had done in the first layer. Mixing Prussian blue and this midnight blue uh, is a very good transition color for the swirls to the night sky, rest of the night sky. And I'm filling up the rest of the blank spaces in the sky with this shade. If you want this to be a dark, moody kind of a piece, you might even want to add a little bit of black. We have a slate black in the color sheets for this purpose. You can add a bit of black to the deep dark blue that you have created and add that to the edges of the swirls, maybe a little bit to the stars as well, and it will increase the contrast and moodiness of this painting. I for one wanted it to be on a little bit on the lighter side, a bit more of a happier painting than perhaps the original artist had intended. That's pretty much it, you guys, for this night sky. This is the trick to replicating that impressionistic feel of Van Gogh in watercolors. It's a lot of patience and a lot of layers and different shades of blue. The key, like I said before, is to just make sure that you give enough time for the layers to dry. Work on different sections of the painting. It is actually one of the reasons why I started with the stars, moved to the swirl, and then the rest of the night sky, and then came back to the swirl, and then went to paint near the stars. Uh, Keep changing while you're painting to allow the layers to dry properly before going back in and adding more paint in the same area. Now I want to add a little bit more depth to the stars itself. If you can see the original painting, there's a little hint of brown or darkness in the stars, and I am doing that by adding a dot of yellow ochre to the center of the circles of yellow, of happy yellow that we had initially put down. And don't just stop over there. Let the same color create a few directional strokes following the same pattern that you had created before surrounding these stars, because it gives the illusion of these stars radiating light when you do that. Just a couple of strokes around the stars is good enough. You don't have to uh, do too many, as long as one can see the radiating light or illumination, or the stars illuminating the night sky. that is that is good enough. And then in the biggest circle on the top right corner, paint a crescent moon. Paint a crescent moon with the same yellow ochre shade. Now it's finally time for the cypress tree. This is the part that I have been dreading, because I started the painting without thinking too much, and in hindsight, I should have probably masked out the tree before I started painting the night sky. But it's okay. And this is the part that actually gave me a lot of confidence issues when I was painting this, because I was wondering whether I'd be able to pull it off, whether I've sort of ruined my painting by doing this, uh, and forgetting to mask off the cypress tree before I started painting. But in the end, I think it turns out okay. I I do still wish that I had had the foresight to mask the cypress tree before I started painting the sky, because the section of the night sky that this tree covers is probably one of my favorite parts of the sky. So that's a shame, but I hope you guys do better than me and use masking fluid, or even cut out masking tape if you need to. But if you don't have either of them, let me tell you, you'll still be fine. I did not believe it at this point in the painting, that particular day, but 1 hour later, it still turned out perfectly all right. And even if it doesn't, it's just in my sketchbook, so it's not the end of the world. As for what I'm doing for this with the cypress tree, I diluted a mix of burnt sienna and tree bark brown to outline the shape of the tree first. I wanted to see where I want to place the tree and how the shape needs to be before filling it in with burnt sienna. And I felt like I could, thicken up the tree a little bit, make her thick. And that's what I did. And I ended up adding a lot more of the tree bark brown. In the original version of the painting, you could see hints of red, browns, and deeper shades over in that area. It looks black when you look from afar, but when you look at it close up, apparently it's supposed to have a lot more variation in shades. So I tried to do that with watercolors, and I think it turned out pretty good overall. Now I'm starting to work on the mountains in the background. There is the farthest range of mountains or hills in the background are painted almost yellow, completely yellow, with a few strokes of almost green color, but not quite. It's I believe it's like a reflection of the stars. It's being hit by the uh, moonlight. And I tried to do that with the happy yellow color. Again, I went in with a super watered down version of happy yellow and then added small strokes of ocean blue to indicate the shadows in the hills. And for the next couple of ranges, initially I thought I will just make that part into a single mountain range or hill range and simplify the painting a bit. But I knew I was going to change things up in the rest of the painting, so I felt like I should probably stick to the original as much as I possibly can. That's why the blue mountains have been split into two parts. Inish, it was a little too light for me. Even at this point, it's a little too light for me. So while I had gone with a diluted midnight blue for this originally, I think I needed to add a little bit more pigment back into the page. So I let it dry before going back into the section with a more concentrated midnight blue. At this point, I really like how the topography of the scene is turning out, and I didn't want to add anything more complicated like the small town that is there in the original painting. I wanted the scene to be quite simplistic and easy for any kind of artist to do. Plus, to be quite honest with you, I was running out of I just wanted this painting to be done around this point. I do not have the best of patience for longer paintings, and I had got about 2 hours of painting time in at this point, and I was itching for me to be done. So I thought a field of some sort would be a good way to finish off the composition. And for that, I initially laid down a light wash of sap green. Perhaps wash is not the right word. I'm just creating U-shaped, uh, I'm just drawing the letter U over and over again, letting them overlap each other in different angles. Some following the base of the mountain range, and others almost from the bottom edge of the painting towards the center. This part is fairly straightforward, you guys. I did not have to do much. Started with sap green and then moved on to a diluted mix of sap green and ocean blue for the rest of the fields as a base color. Then I switched to adding light green with ocean blue because light green I felt was a bit more vibrant, and at this stage I felt like the painting needed something a bit vibrant for the foreground. because it the sap green did not really match the rest of the painting. It was a bit too undersaturated. Yeah, it was a bit too undersaturated for how colorful the night sky and the rest of the painting is. Sap green would not have cut it, so I switched to light green at, at that point. There's still a small speck of sap green on the page, but it just added to the variety of the foliage or variety of the type of fields that are surrounding this landscape. And I'm still using a similar type of strokes that I had used for the sky. I'm still going with very short, uh, very detailed strokes for the rest of the landscape as well. I'm not using longer, more flowy or directional strokes, but it's it's still short. It's still um, you can still see the layers of brushwork. I even went back in with a bit more midnight blue and allowed it to bleed into the wet areas of uh, this field. Allowed it to bleed into the wet areas and create a very soft, organic transition from shadow to light. And as a final touch, I'm adding more of the ocean blue. Sorry, I think I added midnight blue in a diluted form to uh, the yellow mountain range. And if you want to take this further, remember you can always add more black. Add more black to the trees and make it darker. You can add enough black that you will not probably see the sky peek through from behind the tree. That would be great. And add more details into the foreground if you think it needs it. If you want to experiment with adding a small house or maybe even the church from the original painting. I believe the church has a lot of significance and meaning to it, so it would be a good idea if you're when you're retrying this painting, maybe add those elements back. But remember, you guys, you have to not be afraid to make it your own if that's what you feel like. Uh, like I said, this is not a very moody night sky, it's more of like an evening sky, and it still has a lot of warmth and happiness and joy. I feel like much more than the original painting, which has some dark undertones to it. But if you want to take that whole thing off the plate, if you don't want to create a night sky and you want a more maybe sunset, pink sunset vibes, then you can switch it up with more of the reds and crimsons that are there in the palette. Whatever you guys want, you can try it, and I'm sure this painting will come out beautifully as long as you follow the main rule, which is allowing the layers to dry. Aside from that, I don't think you need to worry about anything when you're creating this painting. It will turn out beautiful. So remember to enjoy the process and also share your artwork with us if you do end up creating something. I would love to see your recreations of Starry Nights. If you do and if you did like this video, then check out the Starry Nights limited edition color sheets that are currently available on our website. It is a limited edition stock, so you will have to hurry and pick one up as soon as possible, or we might run out of it, and we don't intend to restock it anytime soon. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and happy painting.